Okay, I'll start the recording. Okay. So anyway, if this becomes official, we just maybe briefly introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to start?
Okay, sure. I'm Vanessa McCarty and I'm in my car.
And where are you? Which country location are you in?
So I'm in New Zealand and I've immigrated back to New Zealand after 27 years in London, and I'm in between places, so I don't have my office or anything like that. So the most confidential place I have is my car. So that's why I am here. And I'm a child and adolescent psychotherapist. I've got 17 years experience, and I do parent consults and work with children and young people in school settings and in private settings and in all sorts of ways. And yeah, that's me.
That's cool. Actually, I only just realized I could select gallery. So now we're both together, like on both.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, great. But
Cool.
we had a little bit earlier, then I was kind of just maybe my face looking at you speaking.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, yeah, we're learning as we go along. So I'm
Exactly.
Adele from Hong Kong. And yeah, we just kind of connected last week with Vanessa, and we felt there's some really precious and yeah, kind of inspiring topic, you know, that we want to go deeper with and see what comes out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the digital world and parenting and children and the online world, and just have conversation about it, because it's a lot. You know, it's just a lot, isn't it, as a parent to
Absolutely.
be in this world with the digital world as well, and how we can support each other.
Yes. So
Yeah.
my job in Hong Kong is basically I work in the fashion industry, but kind of starting to tap into more of the digital world, which is something I started about 10 or 12 years ago, but I can't say I don't like it like in the beginning. I think I have a lot of judgment about it, but more and more, you know, since I've been learning about it, I feel there's definitely things that yes, it's given me a different kind of perspective in things. So now I do a little bit more, for example, live streaming, and understand how the communication of this world works a little bit better. And I find it, to me, I find it really inspiring. And yes, I'm a parent. I have one son who's 17.
Yeah, I've got a daughter who is 11, about to be 12. And yeah, a lot like you, Adele. I think I've been quite judgmental about the digital world, and I think a lot of parents are. You know, it's something that we ourselves use. A lot of us use it ourselves, but and I think we're quite judgy about that as well. And actually, just last week, I thought to myself, maybe after our conversation, actually, I thought, actually, I enjoy Facebook. I actually enjoy this time. I enjoy seeing other people's posts. I enjoy posting. I enjoy the actual expression of it. And, you know, whereas before I felt like I was just constantly judging that it's bad, it's a waste of time, it's like, you know, go down the rabbit hole of just you've lost 3 hours or something like that. Which obviously isn't great, but I think lots of people go down lots of sort of different rabbit holes for those sorts of things. But it did feel like quite a shift for me to actually go, actually, I quite enjoy the digital world as well. There's a lot about the digital world I get a lot from. You know, I get a lot of my information from there, and that helped me sort of just relax a little bit about it, instead of feeling quite judgmental and fearful. I think as a parent, I have a lot of fear around what can happen, which is real, is a reality. You know, with my work, I've done a lot of investigation into different forms of abuse that happens online and stuff like that, and it's very prevalent. And ask any school teacher, any head teacher, one of their biggest difficulties is WhatsApp and what happens on WhatsApp with the kids and group settings. And so there feels like there's just a lot that goes on. But I've enjoyed my shift just in myself since we last spoke about actually, I can enjoy this too. And it doesn't have to be a black and white, this is bad or this is good. Yeah.
I think that's very important. And I understand everybody uses, the online platforms for different purposes. Some people might use it, like you said, just to get information, do some research, or other people want to, kind of connect with people, or other people want to just look at other people's stuff, and, remain hidden. Everybody has different kind of purposes, to go on there. I find that for me, most of my years with online, basically my main purpose, is to express myself, because I've found when I was younger, I found it very difficult actually to communicate with people around me. Are you stuck? Hello, Vanessa, are you there? I'll wait till Vanessa comes back, but I'll keep speaking. And what I was saying was, in the past, when I was younger, I found it quite difficult to actually communicate with people around me. That, of course, in itself is one block, that I had, and I felt it quite hard actually to communicate. And therefore, I started using online platforms to actually express myself. Okay, so that was my main purpose, of discovering and using online platforms. And gradually, like as I evolved in using digital platforms, I realized it's great, to be able to actually connect, to be able to actually say things and speak and interact, with other people on the platform as well. I mean, sometimes there are people that sometimes there are people that you don't know. Yeah. And with that kind of progression, I've also started doing some kind of, either it's live streaming or it's kind of like a regular vlogs, video blogs online on different platforms, and started to experience like how it is when people you don't know, like almost anyone going there seeing you or communicating with you, are people that you don't know. So it's like that's a completely whole new level of being exposed nakedly and transparently in the so-called cyber world, where the bullying, the abuse and all of those things happen and are very prevalent. So kind of my experience was to go from a very kind of secluded place of just checking out, what it means and what happens when I start to express to people, you know, that I know or don't know, and starting to communicate them with people that I know, feeling very lovely, intimate, with them, and then coming to a bigger platform of like everybody who comes to look or see or hear are people that I don't know, and also to experience, the kind of the real world, out there online. So kind of that's my experience. And I would say the reason that Vanessa and myself connected and came together to hope to start a conversation on this is because I find very fascinating things happening in the digital world, especially with younger people. Because I have a son, 17, and to him, his only world is digital. Almost he has no real physical world in the human to human kind of level. So all the things that happen, in his life, and really, yes, like most of his world happens online. And I live with my son like full time. And so throughout the years, I have been observing, that this is the case. And I've gone through as a parent, different stages just to come back, for me to a place where I I don't react so much, anymore. Because in the beginning, I reacted hugely. It's like, oh my gosh, like it's terrible, it's horrible. Everybody is telling me that, going online, being with your screens all the time, it's like no different from taking cocaine. Yes, energetically, that might be a fact. But the thing is, it's happening in real life, in my life, and it's happening every single day of my life with somebody that I love. And so happens it's my child. So I had to go through a lot of kind of uh, understanding, for myself as being a parent, to coming back to not feeling bad about how I parent my son or how he's become. And so there's a lot of understanding and acceptance towards both sides. And up to this point, what I realized is I used to be the same as my son. So the fact is, actually, I was no different from him. So when he was younger, there was a point in my life, I would say a couple of years. So it may be fewer years than him, but I experienced exactly the same. So all my connections and communications that happen in my everyday life are online. I started to talk to people all around the world, and I started to make friends, as well as connections all over the world. And I was no different at all. So it was almost like my reaction towards how my son was being was kind of um, a reaction, a lingering reaction towards how I was or my choices in the past. So almost, as you can feel, I wasn't completely accepting of myself yet, of my choices. I still, kind of had some judgment towards how I was. And I tried to kind of cut out or banish, that part of my experience, in my life by becoming the opposite, the other extreme. So what I realized then is my son was there, and no coincidences ever, for me to actually accept deeper. And not just him, I mean, everybody who appears in our life where we find there are certain things that kind of really bother us. It's really just a reminder for us to look deeper in our own lives, as in where there are certain things we kind of judge ourselves still, and to let it go. So coming back to presently, like today, I am much more accepting, of my son. Yes, he's not changed too much, but I feel there is, in him the sensitivity to know that I have opened up, myself, and therefore our relationship is quite different from, how he was, previously. So therefore, I feel, the topic for me on this is, yes, in one sense, it's kind of related to the digital world and how this digital world is kind of invading and overtaking a lot of our young people's lives today. Yes. And a lot of parents, are kind of desperate or helpless, not knowing what to do, or they then exercise a lot of control to try to stop it. Or, there's a lot of distaste, disgust, or kind of judgment, towards how our children or the world in general, is heading towards. Okay, we don't like that feeling, of course, obviously, because the feeling of disconnection, people to people with no connection, this feeling is horrible. Yes, we all know that. We all know that. But the thing is, we live it. We live this disconnection every single day in our lives, and therefore we get the reflection back, from the world of how our children are or how people are in general. You can feel a coldness, you can feel kind of a checking out, you can feel a numbness, a withdrawal, just a protection, as well, to not connect with people, but go into the digital world to do different things, or to communicate that way, because I would only ask how warm and how harmonious are the relationships we have at home. Yeah, like how are we, as parents, because I can definitely reflect upon this for myself, because as a so-called parent or as a so-called mother, do I actually go into my son's room and talk to my son every day with a sort of a role, or a superiority or whatnot, and therefore do we then expect our children to not feel that and to just go along with it? Of course, I'm sure children can feel so much and they're so sensitive. And therefore, there are a lot of things that they would find that is not working or that doesn't make sense. Same with when I was young. When I was young, and I could feel all of this. But yes, so going back to the purpose of expressing myself online started from there, because I felt my expression was a lot held back, from my growing up, from sensing a lot of things but never really expressing what has been felt and what has been sensed. So that was my kind of beginning of my own rediscovery of my voice, as well as healing for myself. And I decided to share it because, first of all, it's kind of like a little bit I found safer. When I first started, it felt that way. It was a bit safer than actually talking face to face to somebody, because it's like you say something is not directed individually or specifically to anybody, but it's an open kind of expression or sharing or statement to everybody. But say if you need to talk to somebody face to face about an issue, yes, sometimes it's a little bit more unnerving. Yeah, I would say. But yeah, but I've started to learn a lot more about the digital world since then, and realize now, yeah, I treasure so much more the face-to-face communications and conversations with people, even though they may be, sometimes a little bit difficult or messy. And therefore, my need to express, myself on online in the digital world is a lot less. I might go there to connect, to see how people are, to look at what people are up to, but there's no longer that huge need to say, I must, kind of share myself and everything, about my life, which, again, no right and wrong, but I've been through that process myself as well. Yes, so Vanessa is still not connected back, but let me see if there's anything else I would love to just keep sharing. And yes, I can feel there's something else which I will just keep sharing to see if Vanessa will join me later on. One of the things is, as a parent, I rarely my son rarely allows me to connect with him online. So Vanessa's coming back. Cool. So we'll just wait for Vanessa and continue the conversations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you're back.
I'm at my brother-in-law's place. I'm just gonna just let them know how long I'm going to be. I'll be 2 secs.
Cool. Sure. So, yeah, so what I wanted to continue sharing on that topic is, as I was saying, my son rarely allows me into his digital world because that, it is his world, he probably feels. And therefore, online, I observe other children or other teenagers, other kids, and and yeah, so sometimes I I see this kind of similar situation between parents. So Vanessa, I'm just talking about the one of the aspects we were chatting about last week, and that is, we may not connect with our own children very much online. Okay, so they have their friends, they have their own world, etc. But what happens
Yeah.
is I realize this, so therefore sometimes I go and observe other friends' children online. And sometimes I do kind of leave them a message or say hi or whatever. And they are quite welcoming of that. They might respond me back, or they might chat with me a little bit and all that. So it almost feels like um, parents maybe can't get into the digital world of our children, but
Yeah.
can get into the digital world of other people's children. So it's like quite funny because I have a friend who exactly told me the same situation. When I told him about his daughter, I said, oh my gosh, I really appreciate your daughter's expression, because I saw something that she wrote on Instagram, and I actually complimented her because I just felt, very touched by it. And then my friend told me, he says, oh, I could never communicate with my daughter on that level.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the same with my son. Like I could never, do the same with him online, and he wouldn't even want me to follow him or
No.
whatever. Yeah. But the thing is, we can do it with other people's children, and they seem quite open, about it. So we found this quite interesting.
Yeah, and I remember last week talking about how that happened. For me at that time, from when I was a teenager, it was with a friend who became a friend. She wasn't a friend; she was my maths tutor at the time. But we formed a really strong friendship, which lasts today. And she was the person I could talk to about all sorts of things that I wasn't necessarily going to want to talk to my mum about, and that doesn't denote or anything that was anything wrong with my relationship with my mum, but there's obviously those stages that you go through where having another adult around who has got experience of the world that your friends don't have, and as a trusted adult that you can then talk to and have guidance from, I think is incredibly valuable. And I guess what would have happened really naturally when we lived much more in communities that were much more close knit with aunties and different people around that sort of fitted those roles. But now we're in this digital age, we have different ways of doing that as well. And I remember saying, like, I can feel that you would probably be that sort of person for my daughter, as she wants to be into styling and fashion, and she's into all that sort of stuff. So I could easily see that she'll naturally want to sort of maybe connect with you, and I know that you would be a trusted adult that could support her, and we don't have to do it alone. I think that was really what we came out of it, wasn't it? It was just like, we don't need to try and be all things to all people as one person. It's
Yeah,
we can get support. We can't do this alone. We have to be in it together, sort of thing.
yeah, definitely. Because I feel I would be very happy if my son can talk to somebody else, another trusted adult. It doesn't need to be me. Um,
Mm.
so I feel that is kind of the network and support that there's quite a need for, I feel, because
Yeah.
family, as I understand it, from very young is not just by blood. And
No.
yeah, it never is like that. Although, not maybe not everybody agrees with that. So, and that's understandable. But it just feels like it is important to have these kind of connections because so many young people and teenagers, if they do not get that support from home or from parents, they feel a lack of care or whatever, they go online and they search for that support, and they're easily then become vulnerable, or
Yeah.
kind of predators. They're predators around just to, they already sense, that there's an opening that they can come in. So yeah, I feel this is very, very important. Of course,
Yeah.
how we are with our children, the connection that we keep building with them, no matter at what level, that is important as well.
Yeah. And I was literally just watching a video about sex trafficking, and the guy highlighted that exact thing, which was the most vulnerable girl is like the ages from about 10 to 12, who has a parents at home, but then they're in their room and they're not connecting to their family, and the family aren't able to connect with them. And he said he could look at any profiling of a teenager's Instagram, social media, etc., and he'd be able to tell you which one was going to be a target for a predatory pedophile, because pedophiles don't come in and be all sleazy and horrible. They're actually like, I get you, I understand you, they draw you in, and they groom is the terminology. And that's part of our responsibility then as parents, isn't it, to how we can connect in. But like you're saying, what we're sort of experiencing is that we don't have to be, maybe we can't, but maybe a friend of ours can, and for us to all take that sort of collective responsibility
Yes,
for our young, so it's not just down to the parent on
yes,
their own.
yes, definitely. Because somehow, sometimes I find there are some kind of blockages, between children and parents. Like once we hold some kind of picture or whatever
Mm,
towards each other, it's like
yeah.
we switch off. It's like I can't talk to my mom about such and such a thing. I would never trust my parents, in telling them that, and vice versa. I
Mm,
feel a lot of the times that when I grew up, I was exactly like that. Like there were just probably like a, a big chunk of my life I would never share with my parents. But when I grew up, I realized my parents were the same to me. Like they would never tell me certain things. Like if they think it's worrying for a child or whatever, they would never be honest, to us about those things too. Which when I grew up, I was like, oh, but you should tell us. We love to, be a part of that as well. But in their eyes, parents shouldn't worry the children, and they should grow up, very, happy,
healthy.
yeah, whatever, worry free, so they have their own reasons, obviously, which is understandable as well. But therefore, a choice that we've made in our expression, our communication habits or patterns, they affect, they would affect generations and generations and generations, which, so, those are some of the things I've observed. So therefore, in my own parenting with my child, sometimes I would think about or reflect, these things and how I would be, with him as well.
I think you've touched on a really interesting unconscious dynamic between parents and children, in that parents aren't honest with their children,
Yeah, it's
but
very,
yet we want them to be honest with us, and we want them to trust us and share with us and all those sorts of things, but yet parents don't model that at all.
no, and it's like it's one-sided. Of course,
Yeah.
children who are sensitive or, more, yes, yes, more sensitive, they would be like, no, no way, like, but there's no relationship really. It's just a
Mhm.
role we play, and then as children we have to succumb, and we have to always, do whatever the parents say. Therefore, first of all, I feel there's a lack of respect, that happens with that, because it's like the parents, we know they're not perfect. We know they're not all smart. We
Yeah.
know they're not all loving, at times. And but why do they ask us to follow them and do everything that they say? To a child, it simply does not make sense, and so it doesn't happen. So so I find, yeah, I think it's great, to have these reflections, as parents, and then how we start, maybe restart to parent again. Yeah, it might be a difficult or a long or even quite challenging process, but I feel it's very worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in my own family life, I've actually observed something really interesting, um, where the adults, the children that I've seen quite a group of children grow up to be adults, and I've seen them as small children who are now all in their 20s. And the children who are the most still really connected to their essence and love and are very open, hearted and gorgeous adults are the ones who you would say, if you looked at the parenting of that family, was quite what we would term um, unstable. It was, there was the relationship broke up. There was different things that went on that were really quite difficult. But those two parents were both very much themselves. They weren't in the role of mother and father. They didn't try to do a picket fence. They didn't try to do everything exactly right, as the right schools and right everything and all that sort of stuff. Whereas that's what I felt that the other family members did, not from, to do their best, wanting the best for their kids, but it was very much they went into the role of mum and the role of dad. And the difference in the adults for me is really quite stark. It's like, well, and what I got out of that was that the children were met with real people. They weren't met with roles, they were met with real people. And in that, and with all their imperfections, it didn't actually matter about the imperfections. They knew they were loved, that there was love, real love there. And that then enabled them to become the people that they are, that they didn't lose touch with their own imperfectness. But the essence of that is beautiful, and love it, love. So it's really interesting how we can get so caught up in trying to get it right rather than actually just being ourselves and being honest about where we're at, and if we are struggling or if we're finding it difficult, but in a way that doesn't load the child so they feel like they've got to look after us or anything like that, but just to being respectful, like you said, and being honest.
Yeah. Great what you said, because it almost feels like for most families, especially growing up as in an Asian family, in our culture, it's like parents never really get to be themselves. Like
No.
never, like they would never be real in front of you. They have to be a parent, basically. And then it's like the child never gets to connect really,
Yeah.
with with that person. So in our lives and in our culture and a lot of families, basically it's like there's a void, in families. It's like a family, so-called, it's the unit where people are meant to be the closest together, but you feel the most void and lack of warmth, and the most disconnected. So therefore, in a lot of situations I've observed, families, when they have arguments, are preferred. Okay, like even if people fight with each other, they argue and they shout, at each other, they tell me it's love. They tell me it's loving because something is actually going on, in those families, rather than, okay, we just pretend, that it's all good, or the children are good, good children, and the parents, are pretending to be good as well, like hardworking, not home too much, and bring in the money and all of that. But then we just grow up, and we just never realized what really family is or what it means. And then we go out and get married and we have our own families, and this perpetuates, like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I would say yes. In my own personal life and family, I've experienced a lot of turbulence. Especially my family. Well, my own family, meaning when I was a kid, that family was exactly that white picket fence.
Yeah.
And so when I became a mom, I tried to perpetuate that, but found it wasn't working. And therefore I went through a lot of turbulence, because a lot of things were trying to get knocked down, or they were in the process of being knocked down. So it was quite messy, and it was quite challenging and difficult for many years. And so now, of course, it's still very imperfect. Um, so as I was sharing when you were, out of data, I was sharing that my son's probably his world 99% is digital.
Yeah.
So maybe he only has a little bit of, his time and presence towards the real human world. Okay,
Mm.
so as I share this, of course, a lot of people can judge it's super imperfect, this kind of family relationship. But to me, I know, the progress that has happened. And I know, yes, even though he is with his phone most of the time, most of the day, apart from when he's resting and sleeping, every single time I go into his room, what he would do, even sometimes I won't, is he would turn off whatever he's watching and he would look me in the eye when I talk to him. Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, that is his communication to me. And these are the little things I would say never to ever not appreciate.
Mm.
The smallest things. And yeah, so it builds up to whenever there are, important things we have to discuss, we do, and it happens. But you say, okay, day to day, do we have that, closeness and communication? I feel no, for sure, no. And I understand why. And because of generations and generations, we've never had this. Okay,
Yeah.
it will take a bit of, patience.
Yeah. And absolutely. And as you say, culturally, generationally, it's like maybe this particular generation of children, because of the digital age, are actually able to act out how they feel. Like there's no how difficult it is to be in relationship,
Mm.
because it hasn't been in the just having real relationships hasn't been part of the experience of the generations before.
No, yes. Or or they sometimes, maybe make the choice to turn to the digital world is because they see how the relationships are around them and they kind of get disillusioned by it.
Yeah.
It's like they know it's not, the way that they know it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess so therefore it's amazing, just to be able to understand or have the awareness towards this and to say it out
Yeah.
and not needing that perfection, but in our daily lives, in all the relationships we have, not just at home, but outside of home as well. We just try to be as real as possible. No perfection. Yeah, sometimes we get emotional. Sometimes we are sad, or we get fragile or whatever. But these are the things just to be honest about.
Mm. And I'm going to have to go in a minute, but the other thing, because I know you, and I know how you hold people and the level of appreciation you have, even though your son is digitally away,
Yeah.
he is being held by you energetically, and that's in the sense that he is held in what you bring into the home and how you live in your home. And so I was saying that for any parents who might feel really distraught by the fact that their child is preferring an online life, that to do exactly what you're doing is observing it without judgment, creating a standard for when you do have interaction, like you're going to look at me, I'm here, I'm a person, we need to do this, and then to always then be holding in that love and that essence, and so that they can feel that's felt.
Yeah. Very, very beautifully said, Vanessa, because this is exactly the process. And I can share today, even though, yes, it's still happening, but I've never felt as close to my son in
Yeah.
like now. And physically, or superficially or outwardly, you may not feel, oh, like we don't have that perfect picture of a family, but it doesn't matter because I really feel very close to him, and I know whenever he needs support, he's the first. I would be the first person he comes to,
Mm-hmm.
and because I have dropped that reaction, I don't
Yeah.
judge him anymore. I just hold him, just accepting and
Mm.
understanding and living the fact that everybody has their own readiness. Okay.
Mm.
But during the process, if you call it nurturing or developing or whatever, it happens every day, and not to give that up.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to
Yeah,
talk to you.
exactly. And more of this.
Definitely. Okay.
Yeah.
So I will see you next week.
Maybe
Thank
next week. Yeah, cool.
you.
Okay. I'll have data sorted.
All right. Okay. Bye.